Just a couple bad weather fans representing New York, talking all things sports. Man, what could go wrong? We got Alex, who's a fan of the Knicks, and Mike of the Nets. The yin-yang of the tri-state, place your bets on the Yankees, Giants, Mets, or Jets. Yeah, you should listen if they're sparking your interest. If you made a vow to your team, don't break it. Bad weather fans is the relation.
That's right. This is Bad Weather Fans, episode number 195. Mike Biseglia, Alex Benesowitz, and we are presented by DraftKings. The Brooklyn Nets winners last night versus the Orlando Magic. They got some bad news regarding Ben Simmons, who will be out for at least a week. We know that means more than a week. And the New York Knicks off last night, but their three-game winning streak came to an end when they lost to the Boston Celtics in Boston. The Knicks now 5-5 on the season after 10 games. The Nets 6-5 on the season after 11 games with the win versus the Orlando Magic. And Obi Toppin goes for 27 as the best team in the Eastern Conference. The Indiana Pacers get a win versus the Philadelphia 76ers. Just had to add that in there for all my Knick fans out there. Alex, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Mike. I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well as well.
I'm good.
Good. And not as well as Ben Simmons, who I tried to tell you this summer, man.
Yeah.
I tried to tell you, he's just doing this to get his paycheck, and then he was going to get some kind of BS injury. I don't know if it's BS. Maybe he's actually hurt. I don't know. Like, listen, I don't want to be insensitive, but, it's kind of hard to say that he's totally fine. He's actually injured and has a legitimate, like, long-term injury considering his history. He just worked out all summer. He showed up to camp, played a few games, just so he can collect his paycheck. And I will take that to the grave. And this is exactly what I thought was going to happen. And it's exactly what happened. So, Mike, your thoughts?
I do think his intentions are pure to actually get out there and play. I'll take the angle of, I just think, I think there is something mentally and physically blocking him from succeeding. And I think it's both. I do think the physical ailments are there and part of them are real, but I do think at the same time that he is blocked, and it just has a hard time processing to continue to stay out there. I think it's difficult for him. I know how tough this stuff can be, man. Like, it's a struggle, and I do think that he wants to be there. I just think for him, the combo of all the injuries he has been through, he is definitely terrified to go to the basket, and the combination of it has hurt him physically and mentally. And it is a sad sight. I hope he gets out there and I hope he can be back. We were definitely wrong on a lot of fronts about the Nets. Me personally, in the preseason, talking about him taking the Nets to the next level. I think in retrospect, looking back at it, Ben Simmons is a player that can definitely help the Nets. He is a good role player on a team that would be making way too much money for the value that he provides on the court. But he will be missed because he did help this team succeed and win games. Is he a superstar? Absolutely not. Is he overpaid? 100%. And hopefully he gets back out there and is just another key in this Nets rotation that is very deep and has different guys on different nights step up.
Yeah, but now he's back to zero. Remember, we've been talking about this on the show a couple times over the last few episodes. We're like, all right, you're getting something. And yes, it's obviously never going to be what his contract is, what he's worth, but you are getting something. Yeah. You're back to zeros. Back to zeros with Ben Simmons, and it's not worth it anymore. And you're just stuck. It's just a major anchor around your neck with this guy. And, Philly's laughing at you still. And it's just, they can't really laugh anymore because they had James Harden. That. But the fact that they were able to unload Ben Simmons, even with the Harden stuff, I'm sure they're laughing, so it's frustrating, I'm sure, as a Nets fan, but this is, you had to expect this. You can't be surprised. You just can't. And it's frustrating if you're a Nets fan. I mean, it's not funny because I'm not laughing that Ben Simmons is hurt if he is legitimately hurt, but it's funny to me that, Nets fans got sucked into this. Because it was so obvious from the outside. And I know you have the fan optimism and you have no choice but to believe. But at the end of the day, it's like, how can you even have gotten fooled in the slightest with him?
It's interesting because I was listening back to episodes, and when we were in the off season, I was really aligned with you in this. He has no chance, and this is what will happen. I actually believed it. I said it, and I knew it. Then the preseason happened, and I did get sucked back in a little bit where he played well. And then the regular season happened, and I got brought back down to earth a little bit because he was still playing well, but his inability to go to the basket became more apparent as the season continued. It was dipping lower and lower. So my expectations, kind of changed a little bit. And then hearing this news and seeing the injury, and then each day, I wasn't surprised when the news broke yesterday, considering how things had gone. And I'll always defend any fan that's going to get hyped up and excited. You can't help yourself. And that's just the nature of loving and being passionate for your team. I can't speak for Knicks fans who, can see clearly through everything and know every end result. So obviously, us Net fans don't have that ability to predict the future like the team from Manhattan. So I can't speak on that front. But I won't apologize for being excited and being hyped for a moment and hoping that things would be better. And now you just, wait and see what the results are. But I think if you're a Net fan too, you go into you move forward like you did last night versus the Orlando Magic, where you don't even really think about Ben on the roster, and we'll wait for some more news. And I hope for a speedy recovery, and I hope that he's able to get back on the court. And that's it, right? I can't sit here and dwell and be upset because the Nets are still playing games, and they go out and they beat the Orlando Magic convincingly after being down 3 in the first half, where Nick Claxton had 4 fouls. He comes back in the second half as a monster defensively. The Nets get contributions from everybody, 6 players scoring double figures. Your backup big and Day'Ron Sharpe had 11 points and 10 rebounds, which you like to see. Defensively, is a little bit of a liability, but they're able to crash the boards. And Nets do what they do. They make threes. They get out in transition, which they did again, even without Ben Simmons. They got timely buckets from Spencer Dinwiddie, who poured in 29 points and had his best game of the season. And away you go, 6-5. Nets get wins versus teams at home that they're supposed to defeat in the Orlando Magic. No more of this at Boston, Milwaukee. I mean, they're starting to get a little more relief in the schedule, and some wins are popping up. Now you go to Miami on Thursday, who's on a 5-game winning streak. Last time the Heat lost was when they played the Brooklyn Nets. And you hope for another win on Thursday night and for a speedy recovery for the guy in Cam Thomas, who leads your team in scoring, who, by the way, is out also while the Nets are still winning basketball games.
But if you had to bet, is Ben Simmons playing again this season?
If I had to bet, I would bet yes, but I wouldn't bet that it's more than between 3 and 10 and then something else happens. I think you'll get him back and then something again will happen. This is not like an excited prediction, but yeah, I think he'll be back and get a little more run. And then to my point, when we started the episode, something physically and mentally just isn't connecting for him, and he'll be out again. But yeah, I do think he'll be back, but I don't think it'll be anything impactful or meaningful for an extended period of time.
Okay. And what's funny? It's like, it almost feels like even the Nets players don't know what is happening with Ben Simmons, because before the game, Cam Thomas was asked about Ben Simmons and he goes, "Oh, it's a back injury?"
Right.
Like, he didn't even know, and that's from Pooch. So I just feel like something's weird there. You know what I mean? And that's why my conspiracy theory brain,
Sure,
goes wild.
But what's good about this Nets team as opposed to the ones in the past was, I think these guys from Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, and that's where it stems from, are really good dudes. And they're not going to dwell on Ben being out, and they're just going to move forward. And that's what this team has done. And I want to move the narrative that way because, yeah, I mean, Ben's been out for all these games. They're still going out and winning. They're 6-5, and they're doing it without their leading scorer, and they're doing it without Ben. And I think for this team is built to just move forward. It's not like if the Knicks were to lose R.J. Barrett, Jalen Brunson, or Julius Randle, it's a different story. Now, I think if the Nets lose Mikal Bridges, that's a big problem. But you have seen otherwise, the Nets have lost literally everybody on the roster has missed time. That is a key cog in this team. Nick Claxton didn't play for the first 8, 9, 10 games, minus that first game of the year. Cam Johnson missed the first 10 games basically of the year. Now Cam Thomas is out. These aren't just guys that are, on the team. They're missing their best players, and they're above 500. That they'll just move forward, and that's how you have to take it. That's how you have to look at it, and that stems from the leadership from guys like Mikal Bridges. And to give Jacques Vaughn credit, you might not love every move he has made, but this team has been stabilized. They play hard. They're a team. They're together. And so far, so good if you're the Nets. You can't ask for more.
Yeah, well, how about Star J Barrett, man? 5-2 with him in the lineup and 0-3 without him. That's showing that he's stepping up, and it's different than the Nets, where like they're a full team. They're not reliant on their top 3 players or whatever. They're just a full on team, and that's why I was like, I was saying a couple week or two ago that the Nets might be better than the Knicks. You know what I mean? Like it kills me to say it, but they're good top to bottom, and they're very even keeled throughout the roster. And they don't have any alphas, and they're just kind of like, yeah, who's up next? All right, man. Ben Simmons is out, whatever. Cam Thomas is out, whatever. Let's go. Let's roll. Dinwiddie time, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And that's a testament to Jacques Vaughn, man, and the coaching staff. And look, you got me praising the Nets, and it's making me want to vomit. But you know what? Like, it's facts are facts. You know what I mean? And it's hard because with the Knicks, it's like they have their ups and downs, but ultimately it's about the playoffs, and yeah, it's not the big 3 Nets where it's like with championship aspirations, but it's just we know what this team is. They're going 45 to 48, maybe even 50 games, but then when they get to the playoffs, it's about that, and maybe they can win around, maybe they get the Eastern Conference Finals, and then it's like, okay, well, okay. You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, it'll be fun, and when you're in the moment in the playoffs, you get into it, but then when you look back, you're like, what did we just do? Like, what do we accomplish? Are we on the way to something? Are we ascending? Or are we kind of flatlining here? Not flatlining, but you kind of reached your plateau? That's the better way to say it. Not flatlining. We didn't die, but it's just bizarre.
I've been, I'm not in your world, obviously.
Right.
But I have seen through the lens of the Obi Toppin conversation, the Knick fan that is in love with Julius Randle. Now, I think any rational, sane Knick fan that watches this team knows that he can't be your king or your leader to ultimately win a title. So I am flabbergasted by Knick fans that don't see the reality of their team with him and really believe that this is a guy that can lead you to ultimate 100% success. Has been a little eye-opening for me and stunning to see how many fans are just like, this is our guy. We have to ride with him. And not saying you don't. Like, obviously you do when he's on the court, when he's on your team, you want to wish the most ultimate success. But the defenders not seeing his struggles in times when it matters most has shocked me.
It's not shocking to me, considering how homers are with Knicks fans and the company men. And then you also have like the little kids, that not little kids, I shouldn't say that, but like more of like teenage to 20s, where Julius Randle is the only guy that they've really seen besides Melo, that's taken the team to the playoffs and been to the All-Star game. And I guess I can get that, but it's just bizarre because Obi Toppin finally gets the minutes. His first game, we played over 30 minutes last night, and he gets 27 points and 6 rebounds on like 80% shooting. You know what I mean? It's just, it's insane. And now in 11 games in his career, he's played over 30 minutes. He's averaging 26 points per game. It's almost 6 rebounds, almost 4 assists, 1 steal, a block, 59% field goal percentage, 44% from the 3, and 87% from the line. Like, that's insane. Like, look, I'm not saying he's 100% going to be great. I'm just saying that even if he just continues to be a starter the rest of the year, what I'm saying is that, let me start over, because it's like, I'm getting emotional here, Mike. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like losing my train of thought, because it's like with Obi Toppin, yes, you gave up 2 second-round picks for him, and that's awful. But it was worth finding out on the team if he was good, especially if you're giving me the injury excuse of Julius Randle and saying, oh, he's banged up. That's why he's not playing well. Well, if you knew that he wasn't playing well because he was injured, and you knew he was injured coming at the training camp when you told us that he was fully healthy, then maybe you should have kept the 8th pick in the draft as his backup, just in case Julius Randle was going to struggle with this injury that now, he's saying that he has. He got surgery, off-season surgery, a minor surgery in June. That's 5.5 months ago, and he was fully healthy for training camp. It's just that it's also if Julius Randle never looked like this, and he was always like running up and down the court, and now all of a sudden he's lazy on defense, and he can't, he has some bad plays, and he's like, then I would understand. Oh, maybe he's injured, but this is who he is. He's always been like that. He's not slowed down by the ankle. Like, it's just an excuse. And then when fans say that, oh, the Julius Randle truthers, we'll call them, the Obi stats are all against bad opponents. It's the portion of I got last night. It's the portion of the season where no one is trying. They added the in-season tournament because nobody was trying in the entire NBA season. So you can't diminish Obi Toppin's stats anymore. And the 18-8 in 3 quarters versus the Eastern Conference champions in the second round of the playoffs, that is a portion of the season where people are trying. So if you knew Julius Randle was banged up and you knew he wasn't going to be 100% healthy, it is bad business. It is malpractice to not keep his backup. But that's not the case. So stop with the excuses with Julius Randle. This is who he is. He might have a run of 10, 15 straight games where he scores over 35 points, and then he's going to pad his stats, and then you're going to look at the numbers and be like, oh, man, this guy's great. King Julius. And then Obi Toppin's going to slowly work his way into the rotation. Well, he's in the rotation, but he's slowly going to work his way into earning more minutes with Carlisle in Indiana. And he's just going to slowly put up those numbers, and then, maybe he'll be good. And maybe he won't. But all I'm saying is that for 2 future seconds, you should have found out here with the Knicks with Obi Toppin. That's all.
Yeah, no, I agree that he was just a wasted time, an experiment. It's disappointing that you never get to know what he was. And I know
it's the what if.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think the sports gods that the Knicks didn't draft somebody else that's on the Pacers right now, who was originally drafted by Sacramento, because that's the guy that's becoming an all NBA player. He's got 27 assists in his last 2 games with 0 turnovers. I mean, you can't. I mean, that's really I think that's the first time that's ever happened. He's playing out of his mind good, and it's allowing the Pacers to become a team that's going to be reckoned with in the Eastern Conference that's got a ascending future, and it all really goes back to him. So that's where, I'm thankful that the Knicks selected Obi Toppin and not Halliburton, although who knows what his future and would have been like if he was on the Knicks, and it would have changed a lot of things, because Jalen Brunson, if you have Halliburton, you're probably not signing him, as you have 2 redundant ball-heavy guards, but then your team is built differently, and it's a whole
back to the future. It's a different but
I'm glad we didn't have to go there. And I'm glad that the Knicks didn't take a point guard when that was something that they had needed for all the years, because how many times can I hear about the last time the Knicks had a point guard was Raymond Felton,
Mark Jackson. Yeah, stop saying it was Walt Frazier. I understand that Knicks haven't had a great point guard since Walt Frazier, but they've had good point guards since Walt Frazier. Okay, in the last 50 something years. Stop with that nonsense. Derek Harper was pretty good. Mark Jackson was pretty good. Rod Strickland was pretty good. Like you said, Raymond Felton was pretty good. Jason Kidd as a 50-year-old was pretty good. Yes. Stop with this nonsense. That's all I'm saying.
I can't wait for a little net Nick game. That'll be
I know.
It's in a minute.
In December, right? December and then January, both are in Brooklyn. And I don't understand why they cluster the Brooklyn games in December, January, and then the ones at the Garden are later in the season.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of I'm not jealous of the people that have to put the schedules together and have to coordinate all of these concerts and the road games and however that has to come together.
There's so many events at the Garden, also, man. There's so many events with it's Christmas time.
Sure. It must be insanely difficult to figure out. And the Nets, I mean, they've got the Heat 2 more times coming up in the next couple of weeks. So they'll play Miami 3 times before they play a lot of teams once, which I guess is good to get Miami out of the way. They're finally hitting their stride. As I mentioned earlier in the show, they've been on a 5-game winning streak since losing to the Nets in Miami. They have not lost. Miami does play tonight on a Wednesday, so at least the Nets are getting them on a back-to-back. Which the Knicks will be doing the same thing with the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta winners yesterday versus the Detroit Pistons, 126-120. And then it's it's Knicks at Hawks. Always interesting when these 2 teams play. I think it always gets all the fans hyped up because of their playoff series from 107 years ago, or whatever it was now. Feels like a million years ago. We'll see what kind of Hawks team. I feel like the Knicks have dominated Atlanta in the regular season.
They have.
I don't know exactly the numbers, but I feel like every time we talk about it, I'm like, ooh, all right, Knicks Hawks. And then it's like the Knicks win by 8. It's the same damn story.
Right,
so hopefully Atlanta gives me a different effort tonight and can bury the Knicks and actually get a win at their home court versus New York.
One guy I'm looking to watch on the Hawks, though, is Jalen Johnson, the rookie. He's been playing really well, and I want to see what he's, I know they've played the Hawks already, but still, like, he's starting to come into his own. I believe they played the Hawks already. I don't know,
They
man.
did.
Whatever.
They did.
They did. Yeah. I thought I was making that up.
They want to
'Cause
win.
I said that based off no sources, but just kind of like in my head, no sources, no research, I should say. But anyway, yeah, Jalen Johnson has been coming into his own lately, rookie for the Hawks. He's really good, athletic, getting his double doubles, and I want to see him play. Also have him on my fantasy team, but they've owned the Hawks. The Trae Young owns New York is BS. It's a COVID kind of narrative, and it was fun for ESPN and the rest of the NBA who hates the Knicks to push that out there. But the record is a lot to a little, with the Knicks winning a lot and the Hawks not winning a lot. So we've gotten our revenge, even though it was the playoffs. But either way, I'm just looking forward to the rest of the season and seeing how it goes. And hopefully RJ Barrett's okay. He had that migraine issue on Monday. The Celtics game was rough. They were hanging in there, and they should, they could have won, but they didn't. It was in Boston, so it's tough. And it's yes, they're 5-5 right now. They're 500, the Knicks, right? There's still a couple games they should have won. That opening night game versus the Celtics, and then the second night of the back-to-back versus the Cavs, when the Cavs were without their entire starting lineup besides Donovan Mitchell. And it was a back-to-back, and home and home, but like, you're the better team, win both games. So these are the kinds of wins and losses, or these kinds of losses that keep you from being a top 4 seed and get you down to the 5-6 and potentially the play-in. You're 500 right now. That's not good. You're trying to get a top 4 seed. That's not good. It's not going to cut it. You got to win these games. And I know they're going to go on their winning streak and all of that, but you gotta, win the games you're supposed to win. Win the games that you're in, the games where you're going into the fourth quarter with 5 minutes left and you're up by 7 or 8. Win those games, and beat the bad teams. But here we are.
Yeah, Knicks have some road games, as I mentioned, the Hawks, and then they stick on the road for 2 terrible opponents. The Washington Wizards, who might be the worst. I mean, the Nets almost blew that game, which would have been a disaster, but they are a disaster, Washington.
Jordan Poole, man. Jordan Poole.
Oh, God.
He's just a mess.
And then, which will be fun, is Knicks at Timberwolves on a Monday night in Minnesota. A winner yesterday versus the Golden State Warriors. Mm-hmm. Minnesota's won 7 in a row, and they're one of the hottest teams in the league. In what was, I didn't watch the full game. I think anybody listening to this now knows. And if you haven't, go on Twitter, go to SportsCenter and find it. Google, or as
YouTube,
somebody,
yes.
Or as somebody once said, which I do. This is not my original thought, but I love it. Instead of saying Google it, this one guy just goes, I just Bing. Like, he goes, yeah, just Bing it. And people are always like, what the fuck did you just say? So if you want to see the highlight, Bing it.
Go to Ask Jeeves.
Yeah, right. Go yahoo.com. But I mean, that was wild. And I love so Draymond obviously chokes out Rudy Gobert, but I love the quote from Gobert saying, like, I'm not surprised Draymond got ejected. Anytime Steph plays, he doesn't want to be there. And like, that is such a subtle way to get under his skin, because it's just such a passive aggressive or aggressive passive way of just being like, if you don't have Steph, you don't have the balls to be out here. And boy, that was a wild scene with Draymond with the choke.
Yeah,
I mean, it was the still shots of it, and Rudy's like, it was just unbelievable.
Yeah, because it's a situation where you don't expect to get choked out. You know what I mean? In Gobert's defense, it's just like, you're trying to break up a fight. Klay Thompson, and I forgot who he was fighting. We're going back and forth, and it was a legit NBA fight where you don't see that often.
2 minutes in.
What'd you say? 2 minutes into the game?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, you're trying to break up the fight, and all of a sudden you get, like, what's happening right now with this massive arm around my neck? And everybody's like, dude, get out. Even Steve Kerr's like, dude, let him go. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And Draymond's got to get suspended for a while, man. He can't just, he feels like he's above the law and he can just do whatever he wants all the time. And that's not the case. And I know it was a very important, in air quotes, in-season tournament game, but you know what? Like, Draymond he does whatever he wants. He tests the NBA, and then he's going to claim, like, he's getting singled out. Like, no, this doesn't happen to everybody.
But that's hard to hide from.
Yeah. I didn't mean it.
Well, I mean, I guess, I
remember when he was kicking people in the nuts and he's like, this is my natural motion. I always kick my leg up, and I just
a title.
Yeah. Kick, punching LeBron in the nuts. That was dumb.
Cleveland came back, the history 1-3-1. Yeah, you can't hide from this one if you're Draymond. But I think you make a good point. He does like to test the NBA, and we'll be very curious to see the amount of games he does get suspended for this. Will be interesting to watch. You did reference the in-season tournament, and the Nets did play theirs yesterday. They're 2-1 now, and they piled on at the end versus the Thank you. It was funny though because it was Ian Eagle and Richard Jefferson doing the game last night.
Oh God, the sarcasm.
It was just so good. And part of me is like, I just wish the game wasn't on and they were just talking.
You listen to it as a radio show, right?
It was just funny, but it was just like going over the in-season tournament, and I was making the point like, you're such an expert, RJ, and you did that video that it's gone viral. And RJ's like, yeah, I regret doing that because everybody now comes to him like he's the expert.
He remembers.
He's like, I regret doing that. And the other funny moment they had where I just lost it was, Richard went to like NBA. He was an official, but he like kind of takes it seriously. So Ian asked him a question, and RJ just started to like really break it down, like kind of in-depth analysis on the foul and why it wasn't called and all these technicalities. And Ian's like, what happened to you? And RJ was like, I just kind of went into a fugue state. It was just like it was so strange. He was so serious on the officiating call. So always a blast when I get to listen to two of my favorites, calling that game, which was cool. But yeah, Nets win 6-5. No Ben Simmons, and we kind of push forward. We
keep on keeping on, Mike. Just
I think it's kind of more exciting. It's an interesting perspective, I think, as Net fans who have had such a difficult couple of seasons, right? With all the off the court stuff with Durant, Harden, Kyrie, that I think Net fans now are really embracing this team that's 6 guys in double figures, good people, are there for each other, genuinely like each other on and off the court. And I think the Net fan who's been through it is like, okay, the Nets have been in every game minus the one in Boston, which they got shellacked, which they were missing a lot of people. And that is an excuse, but they would have lost by 8 less points, whatever. They got their ass kicked. They've been in every game. And I think as Net fans, Alex, it's just Cam Thomas is ascending scoring points. Mikal Bridges plays defense, right? You just can see the light opening just a little. They're nowhere near the end of the tunnel. Like if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see it glowing behind me. Yes. Or at least you can see a projected future. And obviously they're not going to win anything this season, but at least they play hard, they win, and they're just going to finish a boring, fun regular season. And it's refreshing as a Net fan that has been through everything possible with your franchise.
It's funny because the light behind you, if you're watching on YouTube, is the sun's coming up behind him. So it's kind of like the light, God is shining down the light of like, I know. You're ascending up the mountain, Mike. You're ascending up the mountain. That's what I've been saying. And it's just like, it's exciting for the Nets, even if they just win around or just get to the playoffs and have a good series.
Win a game. Yes.
You haven't done that.
A game. You think I'm joking?
That's exciting. And one last thing, we have one of our listeners, James Celestin. He's and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your last name, James, but he asked me a great topic, and it's something that was in the news this week with Zion, where he's saying that, he had that press conference where he was basically saying like, I'm getting acclimated, and he's breathing super heavy, and he was obviously like not comfortable talking about it. And, basically his question is, should the Knicks go after Zion, even though he has an injury history, or Donovan Mitchell, basically whenever he becomes has the player option and he can opt out in a year or so or two, who also wants to be a Knick. So my answer is yes, the Knicks should go after Zion. I've been saying this for years. They should go after Zion. Zion is the guy that they need to go after. It's time. And, we're just wasting time at this point with Zion and the Pelicans. He obviously doesn't want to be there. Sure. He obviously, is never wanted to be there. He obviously always wanted to be a Knick. He was ushered out of the lottery room because he was so pissed off that the Knicks didn't get, the top pick, or at least another team that he would want to go to. Like, who wants to go to the Pelicans? Out of all the franchises in the NBA, you're this massive star and the best prospect at the time since LeBron, and now you're stuck in New Orleans on a dead franchise. Ugh. Not even with Anthony Davis, so it's just, yes, the Knicks should go after Zion. With Donovan Mitchell, it's kind of like I'm just over talking about that. It's just kind of, if he's here, he's here in a couple of years. It's just he doesn't exist to me at this point.
I think it's been very important, and I'll spin it this way, and I apologize, James, but I think it's been really important for the Nets to stabilize their franchise and have a good start, because I know there's some Knicks fans that won't believe me when I say this, but there is a chance that Donovan Mitchell does come to the Nets. It's not that he is very close to Mikal Bridges, and the Nets are still in New York. They're not the Knicks. They're not the team that he grew up with.
He'd still be home. Yes, he'd still be home.
I'm not saying that would be his preference. I'm not saying if he had to choose between the two, he would 100 times out of 100 take the Knicks. But don't be shocked if another guy like a Donovan Mitchell ended up in Brooklyn. And I think for the Nets to have such a decent start to the season where they can look, where other players can look and go, okay, if I join that team, I'm kind of a missing piece again. I think would be helpful. So I would also say don't be stunned if a guy like Donovan Mitchell ended up with the Brooklyn Nets if things go south in Cleveland. And to the Zion stuff, I do not want him anywhere near Madison Square Garden. We don't need that.
Zion for Randle, and Zion and
RJ. It would take
a
little bit more
up
than
again.
that.
No, I know. It would have to be a huge package, but that's the package of and yeah, don't clip that. It has to be a huge package. But the clip of Zion, it would be a trade package of Zion for Randle and then whatever else involved on top of that. That would, even though I don't know why the Pelicans would want him. I know it's a different regime, and I don't know why Randle would want to go back there because he was already there and he opted out of his player option to get the hell out of there. So I don't think he would want there. So they want to be there. So I'm sure there would be like a 3-team deal or some wild shit. But I think we're getting close to that. I've been saying it for years. I got the tweets to back it up that it's just a matter of time. And you even said it, it's a matter of time, where before Zion's and Nick. And,
well, I think just reading everything he says, it's obvious he doesn't want to be there. I mean, it's just obvious. And that doesn't mean that he's not going to go out there and give everything he has. I don't watch every Pelican game. I'm not tuned into Zion on the day-to-day.
I do.
I know you do. You have the Pelican package. But I just reading everything he says out loud, hearing everything he says, he wants to get out of there. And I think the natural spot would be the Knicks now. If anybody said, all right, if you had to take a gamble here, does Zion Williamson play his entire career with the Pelicans or does he move on to another team? I think anybody and everybody would say he moves on to another team. It's just about the timing. And that's where you would then have to give, in my opinion, a lot of credit to Leon Rose and Knicks brass for waiting it out and making the deal at the right time to bring in the next guy. That would be the move, and you'd have to give the Knicks and their franchise a lot of credit if they were able to pull something like that off. If they acquire all these draft picks and assets, and they made a move and they got him here, and then the Knicks had the opportunity to ascend, and that's the difference. If you were to acquire somebody like Zion Williamson, I think your Nick, where I think I would actually rather have him than Donovan Mitchell is, the sky's the limit for how good your franchise could be at some point if you were to acquire somebody as good as Zion and with as much potential as he has. I think as a Knicks fan, you would be pretty doggone excited if you're able to make a move like that. But for now, I'm just hope Dante DiVincenzo keeps missing 3-pointers. How's he look,
Grimes,
by the way?
He's been good. He's been getting clutch minutes, and because Grimes has been awful, but offensively. But really quick to finish it up with the Zion stuff, it's he wants to get out of New Orleans, and he probably his preference is probably the Knicks. But just like with Dame with Portland, he wanted LA, but at the same time, it's okay, get me out of Portland and get me in a good situation. Because if Zion ends up with the Bucks a couple of years when Dame is gone and he's with Giannis or something like that, then I'm sure he'll be happy. Even though he wanted to be with the Knicks, at least he'll be on a relevant franchise and a team that can win a championship, and he can play in relevant games. And I know the Pelicans can make the playoffs and stuff like that, but they're not winning anything, and he doesn't want to be there. So, I'm sure he just wants to get in a good situation, or if it was with Miami or something like that, that would make me vomit. But like that would be a good spot for him too. So overall, we'll see.
Bad Weather Fans, episode 195, Nets winners versus the Orlando Magic. Nets now 6-5 on the season. If you're listening to this, getting you ready for Knicks versus the Atlanta Hawks. And Nets 2-1 in the in-season tournament. Some teams haven't even played an in-season tournament game yet. If you're asking me how it works, I have no idea. But
Ask Richard Jefferson. Yes.
I do think the Nets have the best in-season tournament court because it just was gray. And not
the colors aren't
starburst
like wild
red.
Yeah.
I mean,
they don't have a color that's it's black and white are the colors, so it's very easy and gray. Yeah.
Oh, I know. I mean, some of these courts, like it just they're like
look like Boise State. Yeah, like.
crazy. I'd be curious if. Oh, we'll see how all the dust settles on this in-season tournament thing. Yeah, definitely have no idea how it works. But I know that Jacques Vaughn was piling it on as Mikal Bridges up 18 gets the ball and scores on a fast break layup with 5 seconds left. Normally would get to
dribble it out
to come after you, but
yeah,
no, not here in the tournament. You've got to pile it on, and that's Brooklyn Nets basketball. Add points versus the Orlando Magic when it's over.
Like when Alfred Payton forearm shivered Jay Crowder for shooting that 3 at the end of the game.
That's part of the tournament. That's part of the beauty of the new NBA.
Embarrass the opponents in this NBA season, please.
Not only do we take 75 threes a game, you can now make sure to pile on score points.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, Alex. Unbelievable time we live in. I remember when the games were 87-82.
You know that Allen Houston shot in Game 5 versus the Heat? I don't know if you've ever heard of that play.
I've seen it.
Yeah, the score was like the high 70s or something like ridiculous, or low 80s. I forgot. Like I don't know exactly, but it was something ridiculous. If you ever seen that play, you should definitely look it up. It's a very fun play.
Yes, gotcha. And did you win the title that year?
No, but they got to the finals.
That's true.
They had a nice run.
That Knicks team didn't even bother me.
Yeah, because it wasn't supposed to be good. It wasn't like
it was before Twitter and the whole thing. X. Whatever.
Yes,
Bad Weather Fans, episode 195, Mike and Alex. Don't forget to download on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, or Stitcher still in business, wherever you find these podcasts. YouTube, check it out. Get the video version of this. We always appreciate you subscribing, and tweet us at Knicks Central, at Mike Delivers Pod. Or let us know where you are watching this podcast. We appreciate all of the support. Really means a lot to us as we continue to ascending to episode 200, which is coming in about 4 or 5 weeks, which is kind of crazy to say out loud as well. Alex, good stuff as always. Hope your team loses to the Hawks tonight, and we'll talk to you later. All right.
All right, Mike. Have a good one. Thank you.
You're welcome.